The night shift had always been my favorite. Most people hated it, said it was lonely, exhausting, a slow killer of energy. But not me. At the BP station near Heathrow, nights were perfect. No endless rush of cars, no customers barking orders at me while juggling their phones. No managers looking over my shoulder. Just silence. Silence and routine. It was November, deep into the season where nights fell fast and lingered endlessly. Outside, Heathrow's runways spread their dull glow across the horizon, flickering lights, the distant hum of aircrafts climbing into the fog-choked sky. But here, on the forecourt, it was quiet. The canopy lights above the pumps buzzed faintly, pools of artificial white cutting through a sea of darkness. Beyond them, the fog crept in, heavy and endless, swallowing the road, the signs, even the cars passing now and again. Each vehicle appeared suddenly, its headlights bursting through the mist, then vanished back into nothingness as though swallowed by some vast gray ocean. Inside, the store felt like its own sealed world. Bright fluorescent lights, shelves perfectly aligned, chillers humming at the back, the faint smell of burnt coffee lingering from the machine. The clock above the till read 1:46 a.m. I leaned back on the chair behind the counter, stretching. My shift was halfway done. The glass doors were locked tight, policy after midnight. Nobody was allowed in. If anyone needed something, they had to use the small sliding hatch at the window. That way, I was safe. Alone, but safe. And I liked it that way. That night, I remember thinking how beautiful the silence was. Even the buzzing of the lights, the low hum of the fridge, the faint tick of the wall clock, it all blended into a steady rhythm that calmed me. But silence can be deceiving. It was subtle at first. Tap. I thought it was nothing. Probably a moth hitting the glass or a stray pebble caught in the wind. Then again. Tap. Tap. I straightened. My eyes drifted to the front window. That's when I saw her. A figure standing just outside, half shrouded by the fog curling across the forecourt. At first, I thought it was a late-night traveler, maybe someone from a delayed Heathrow flight who'd wandered here by mistake. But no. Something was off. She stood too still. Her body motionless, like a mannequin placed deliberately at the window. As the fog thinned, her features came into view. A girl, maybe 19, 20 at most. Her hair was long, black, and soaked, strands clinging to her pale skin. She wore a thin, white dress, tattered at the edges, damp as though she had been standing in rain for hours. And she was barefoot. The November frost coated the pavement in a slick shimmer, but her bare feet pressed against it as though she felt nothing. Her eyes found mine through the glass. Something inside me twisted. They weren't normal eyes. They were too dark, too empty, like holes punched into her face. She lifted her hand and pressed it flat against the window. Her fingers were long, unnaturally thin. For a moment I thought they might snap. Her lips moved. No sound. Just movement. At first, I thought she was asking for coffee, or maybe a taxi. The usual late-night nonsense. But no. I read her lips clearly. Open the door. Let me in. A chill ran down my spine. Nobody ever asked me to open the door. Everyone knew the rules. The sliding hatch was there for a reason. That was how it worked. I pointed toward it, tapping the counter as if to say, use this. But she didn't move. She didn't even blink. Just stood there, staring, lips moving again. Open the door. Let me in. Her voice wasn't audible, not through the glass. But I heard it. Not with my ears. Somewhere deeper. Inside my head, like the words had bypassed sound entirely. My heart started racing. I shook my head, firmly. She tilted hers in response, too far, unnaturally far, like a marionette whose strings had been pulled wrong. And then she smiled. It wasn't human. Too wide. Her lips stretched to the edges of her face. I stumbled back from the counter. My legs trembled. My throat felt dry. For a second, the lights above flickered. And when they steadied, she was gone. The forecourt was empty. No sign of her. No footprints on the wet ground. Just fog. Endless fog. I exhaled slowly, telling myself it was nothing. Just tiredness. My mind playing tricks. Then, tap, tap, tap. The sound came from behind me. I spun. She was at the side window now. Closer. Her face pressed against the glass, her breath fogging it. But it didn't smear like normal breath. It spread in strange, curling patterns, almost like symbols. Like writing. Her lips moved again. Open the door. Let me in. But this time, I didn't just hear it in my head. I heard it everywhere. The words seemed to echo inside the store itself, bouncing off shelves, seeping from the lights, buzzing from the chillers. I clutched the counter, trying to steady myself. My hands were shaking. Her eyes never left mine. And then, she vanished again. The rest of the shift dragged like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. Every shadow in the corner seemed alive. Every flicker of the lights made my heart stop. I refused to look out the windows, refused to see if she was still there. But sometimes, when I glanced up just a little too quickly, I caught her. Standing at the edge of the fog. Watching. Her lips always moving. Always whispering the same words. Open the door. Let me in. Morning came at last. The fog thinned, sunlight cutting weakly across the forecourt. The manager arrived, cheerful as ever, his keys jangling as he pushed the door open. He stopped when he saw me. I must have looked a wreck, pale, trembling, eyes bloodshot from staring into the night. I told him everything. Every detail. The girl. Her pale skin. The bare feet. The whisper inside my head. The demand to be let in. His face grew still. When I finished, he nodded slowly, almost sadly. You saw her, didn't you? The air seemed to freeze. Who? I asked. He sighed. Then told me a story I'll never forget. Years ago, before I ever worked here, there had been an accident. A young woman crossing the road, hit by a car speeding through the fog. She'd crawled, broken and bleeding, across the forecourt. She had reached the glass doors and pressed herself against them, leaving streaks of blood across the panes. By the time anyone found her in the morning, she was dead. And her last words, according to the police report, were heard by the driver who stopped too late. She had been begging. Begging for someone to open the door. Ever since, the manager said, staff had reported seeing her. Not always, but sometimes. Always around 2 a.m. Always on foggy nights. Always saying the same thing. I still work nights. I still love the silence, the emptiness, the strange calm of being alone when the rest of the world sleeps. But now, when the clock ticks past 2 a.m., I keep my eyes locked on the glass. Because sometimes, out of the corner of my vision, I see her. Her pale face. Her lifeless eyes. Her lips moving silently. Open the door. Let me in. And I know, with every bone in my body, that if I ever unlock that door, I won't survive to see morning. So if you ever find yourself alone on the night shift, staring into the silence while the rest of the world sleeps, and the clock drifts past 2 in the morning, remember this story. If you hear the faint tapping on the glass, if you see a pale figure standing in the fog, do not open the door. Not for anyone. Not for her. Because once you let her in, there is no way back, and you will never live to see the morning. Thank you for staying with me through this nightmare. If this story unsettled you, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. I share many more tales of things that walk in the dark, stories that creep just outside the safety of your window, waiting for you to notice them. And trust me, some of those stories are far darker, far hungrier, than this one. Sleep well, if you can.